In Guadalajara, the rainy season doesn't knock. It kicks the door open, drenches your socks, and floods the streets in front of your favorite taco stand. Every year, like clockwork, the skies crack open near June 24th, Dia del San Juan, a day filled with tradition and mysticism across Latin America. In Guadalajara, if you're lucky, or maybe just curious, it also reveals something deeper about this city. Welcome to a week of rain-soaked joy, celebration, and radical remembrance. This is Pato's Path. Sunshine teases the morning, but by night, rain owns the city. And when it pours, stay put. Streets flood, trees uproot sidewalks, cars float, and yet life keeps on moving. If you don't time it right, the downpour will trap you. But if you do, if you dance between the storms, you catch a glimpse of something beautiful. This week, I opened my umbrella and headed to the Memorial Museum for LGBTQIA history run by CODISE. With the main Guadalajara Pride Parade behind us, I still felt the urge to dig deeper, to explore the stories that came before our current celebrations. So I grabbed my umbrella and headed into the storm. Pride Month wasn't over for me. It had just evolved. Inside the CODISE Memorial Museum, a small group gathered for a free LGBTQ+ photography workshop, exploring the roots of queer creativity and resistance through light, line, shadow, and memory. Danae, our instructor, was electric. Gloves for flipping through vintage photo books, guiding us through composition and color theory, ISO, aperture, light, and emotion. Guiding us with the geniuses who came before us. And a reminder I won't forget. Your eyes aren't vertical, so stop filming that way, she joked, reminding us to hold our phones horizontally. I knew most of the technical tips already, but that wasn't the point. It was about creating, exploring, remembering. Outside, the world was freshly glazed by the rain. But inside, something else was flooding us. A sense of community. That night, the rain paused long enough for us to celebrate. I headed to Miao Zedong, a dumpling shop on Avenida de la Paz, to join friends and celebrate Nadia's birthday dinner. Artistic food, Chinese fusion, Mexican soul, companions who feel like home. Later, we wandered to the Americana Social Club for some experimental jazz. It was moody and modern, like rain dripping in rhythm. That night ended in music, laughter, and soaked streets. It was perfect. The next day, we returned to the museum. Walk, wait, watch, Danae told us. We explored the photography of the streets, chasing light and finding stories on every corner. Then it was our turn to head out and discover life and beauty in Guadalajara. We hit the pavement to apply what we had learned. As we snapped shots of street art, old doors, and LGBTQ+ landmarks, Danae whispered tips while clouds rolled overhead. And with every click of the shutter, we turned public spaces into personal portraits. As we passed places like Caudillos, a queer landmark in the city, I realized how much history lives in the shadows here. Sometimes erased, sometimes spray painted back in bold color. That day, the rain held off, but the city glistened as if it had been washed clean. That night, I traded my lens for a blaster. Well, not exactly. I showed up to a sexy Star Wars birthday party with a robe, some new boots, no Jedi gear, but close enough, and stepped into a galaxy far, far away with a readiness to embrace the absurd. I didn't know everyone, not even the birthday girl Jesusa, but that didn't matter. We laughed, danced, played trivia, and toasted to nerd joy and chosen family. Celebration, like rain, doesn't need a reason. In a galaxy not so far away, queer joy reigned supreme. The next morning, Kaya and I hit Via Recreativa, passing the Minerva statue, her basin full after the night's rain. The via was alive with kids doing bike tricks. A drum group set the pounding rhythms near the Arcos. And I made my weekly pilgrimage to Tacos de Birria, as sacred as any church, my Sunday ritual. I also shared the last bites with Kaya, who probably loves this tradition more than I do. But dark clouds loomed again. By afternoon, the sky cracked open and the cycle began anew. Rain, flood, renewal. On Thursday, the rain couldn't stop us. At Larva, an old theater turned art hub, FM4 or FM4 hosted a powerful performance about migration, trauma, and hope. A performance that blurred the lines between art and activism. You might remember FM4 or FM4 from my 365 Days of Tequila interview with Antonio, a volunteer who works there. Link in the description. This show blended dance, poetry, live music, and multimedia art to tell the real stories of families fleeing hardship. Barefoot dancers, original poetry, flashing lights, and the sound of trains crashing through the speakers. And then, like a cue from the universe, the rain began to fall on the roof. As poems of migration echoed through the room, the sky opened up above us. The storm outside became part of the story inside. The message was clear. Nobody that is human is illegal. And when the performance ended, we stood up and clapped, soaked in the weight of what we just felt. By the weekend, I was back in the kitchen, baking chocolate chip cookies before heading to another birthday celebration. It was clear in the sky at 9 p.m. By 2 a.m., the streets had turned into rivers. Kaya stood close to me all night. She hates storms and turns to me late at night for protection from the outside world. The streets were flooded. Dirt had piled up in many areas. The tree roots had broken through the cement enclosures, and the city had changed again. But this didn't stop me from trying a new, delicious taco spot near Centro Magno, with freshly grilled meat for their customers and a full variety of mouth-watering salsas. Back at CODISE for our final day, my friend Nick joined me, and we were given maps outlining each historical site, along with brief summaries, just in case we got lost in the maze of the city. Jaime's voice echoed through the streets as we made our way through El Centro, weaving us into the story of resilience. We visited the sites of the first queer political uprisings, where candidates were jailed simply for being gay. But that didn't silence the movement, it fueled it. We stood in Parque Rojo, also known as Parque Revolucion, once a vital meeting point for locals, locas, jotos, y marochas, the crazies, fags, and dykes. It was both sanctuary and a battlefield, a place to cruise, to connect, to exist, but also a space constantly surveilled by police and shamed. And now, it's closed off, fenced up in preparation for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Progress? Maybe. But at what cost? We continued walking under the sun with our umbrellas, not for the rain this time, but for the heat. And Jaime brought us to the corner where 116 queer people disappeared between 1990 and 1991. It was known as La Esquina Mágica, the magic corner, a place where cruising and sex work happened in the shadows. But when those 116 people vanished, the police did nothing. They were deemed disposable. Their disappearances dismissed because of who they were, how they lived, and where they existed. The neglect wasn't accidental. It was systemic, backed by the church, the state, and business owners who financially supported the effort to erase us. And even though some progress has been made, it wasn't until 2011 that the first lesbian marches happened here in Guadalajara. That's not history, it's yesterday. Jaime reminded us that visibility in public spaces wasn't always safe. In fact, Being invisible was often the only way to survive. The city center became a refuge precisely because it was crowded. Anonymity was a shield. We stopped at sites that once held queer bars, cafes, and meeting spots, some of which no longer exist. One, a former Sanborns, used to be the hub of queer life. Now, it's just a memory beneath gentrified tile. But there was a shift, one I hadn't expected. City workers and police escorted us, ensuring our safety. The same institutions that once ignored us now offered protection. It was strange, surreal, maybe even hopeful. We took photos. We honored the invisible. We walked together, not just to remember, but to insist that we are still here. As we wrapped up the tour, tired, sun-kissed, and hearts full, the clouds began to gather again. Not slowly this time. It was sudden, like the sky had been holding its breath all day and finally let go. The first drop landed on my shoulder, then another, and another. In seconds, the air changed, the wind shifted, and then it hit. A torrential downpour, the kind that doesn't just fall from the sky, it slaps, it screams, it takes over. Water spilled off rooftops, pooled in the gutters, and rushed down the streets like rivers. You could barely see more than a block ahead. The pavement became a mirror, reflecting flashes of headlights and street lamps in chaotic streaks. I was on my way to Mario's birthday party, my shoes already soaked through, navigating the storm like a strange ritual. I watched motorcyclists tie plastic bags around their legs, sealing themselves in like makeshift submariners. Pedestrians waded ankle deep, slipping, swearing, and laughing their way across the city. It wasn't just rain anymore. It was a collective baptism, a shared struggle that no one could opt out of. Guadalajara does this sometimes. It tests you, then it invites you in. By the time I reached Mario's party, the rain had calmed. The streets in front of the building were still flooded, water lapping against the tires of parked cars. But inside, warmth. We celebrated. The storm had arrived without mercy, but we were still there, still dancing. The rain passed. The joy remained. And in that moment, dripping, safe, surrounded, I thought, this is what it means to live here. To be soaked to the bone and still show up for each other. To wade through it all and still make it to the party. The next morning, Kaya and I ran and rode through the streets, past still damp cobblestones, the entire via quieter than usual. The city felt like it was exhaling, with Minerva still standing in her glory. That afternoon, I met friends for lunch at Los Altos Chichaneria. And let me just say, the tacos, life-changing, crunchy, spicy, worth every puddle we had to hop over. That evening, of course, it rained again. But by now, I'd stopped seeing the rain as something to fear. It was a rhythm, a cleansing, a reminder that even in chaos, there's celebration. That the past matters, but so does how we choose to live in the present. And eventually, even those rainy days change into something beautiful. This is Guadalajara in the rainy season. Art and activism, tacos and thunder, resistance and rebirth. This is Pato's Path, a story of celebration and remembrance, of rain-soaked joy and radical resistance. A journey through the weather, culture, and courage. If this story resonated with you, hit like, tap subscribe, and follow along to keep walking this journey together.